Chapter 3. A sudden loud burst of air hits the window. I opened my eyes to see that rain had begun to fall. I got up and got ready for the next rounds of fights. I had 2 days left until my sword was fixed. I got dressed and I headed to the arena without waking anyone. I made a cup of tea and made my way out the door. As I descended the road, I saw the princess walking into the city. She was wearing her cloak to hide herself. I walked up behind her to see what she was looking at. She was staring at the leaderboard and looking at who I was facing next. I smiled and said, "Well, another elf. I hope they just fight and not complain. I'm human." I said, scaring Mayan. She looked at me and said, "Good morning, Jack. How are you feeling after yesterday?" She questioned, trying to see if I was hurt from last night's fight. I smiled and tapped my arm. "I'm fine, my friend. I'm ready to get on with this next fight," I replied, and we walked into the building. We talked about a few things, from what I planned to do with the money if I won it, when I would take her mother's offer. Queen Leah wants me to join her army as a general. I still declined the offer and talked about my past a bit. I had this brother. We were about 4 years apart, but we did everything together, from fighting to making food to going on fishing trips. We did a lot of things together. Periodically, I miss him and my home. But I got a new home here, a place to settle down in. I was going on and on about life, telling her some funny stories about my childhood. She laughed at a few of my jokes, but then she asked me a serious question. "Jack, what do you think about this world so far? Do you hate the world for hating your kind? Or do you not care about what people think about humans?" I looked into her eyes and replied, "I don't like that my race did what they did, but I understand the hate. But I also hate that people hate me for being human. I can say that I'm not like the rest, but no one gives me the chance to show them." I watched her nod, and she touched my shoulder. "Well, one step at a time, and others will see who you are," I heard her say to me, and I smiled. Then I went into my waiting room. I got myself ready for the next 2 fights of the day. These fights were easy. The first competitor just launched magic at me. I blocked the shots with my hand, then took them out with a magic shot of lightning. The second match of the day went the same way. The person wasn't an elf, but they had golden eyes. I believe they were a demon, but the fight ended in a lightning shot. I shook my head as the announcer called for me to face the champion. I was shocked that they would call for that match so early. The champ hasn't even fought anyone yet. I've gone through 2 people, so I would be at a disadvantage. But that's what happens. I got 10 minutes to rest and was given a recovery potion by Mayan. She came to visit me before the match. "Jack, you might have a problem with this champion. He's a dragon halfling. He's super strong. He used to be a soldier in my mother's forces. He is also ruthless when it comes to the finishing blow," she warned, and I felt something growing inside of me. Something I've not felt since I got here. "All right, Mayan. Thank you for the warning. But I got this. I've been fighting most of my adult life. I've also been training with Dragnar," I told her as I heard the call to get back out to the ring. I slapped my face and took the last swig of the potion. It healed me and recovered every bit of energy I had lost, as if I had just woken up from a satisfactory nap. I walked to the ring with no expectations, but when I showed my face, I was met with cheers. I even heard familiar cheers behind me again. I looked to see that Joan and everyone, including Mayan, were in my corner. I smiled and then felt eyes piercing right into my soul. I looked at the champion. He was not making a face, but I could tell he didn't want me there. I knew this was going to be a hard match, but as soon as the bell for the match to start sounded, I unleashed a bit of my magic to test him. He caught my weakest spell and threw it to the side. I laughed. This is going to be fun. Then I ran at him and struck with a bit more strength. He caught my fist, but then got caught by the other fist in the gut. He grunted, "You can fight. Let's see what happens when you get pushed a bit more." He hit me in the chest, sending me back into the wall. I pulled myself out of the wall, then the air began to get warmer. I looked up to see a fireball being thrown in my direction. I charged at the fireball, casting an ice shield and passing right through. The dragon then threw a punch, and I met it with my own. A clash of ice and fire enveloped the arena. Mayan and several of the guards had to throw up a magic barrier. to protect everyone from getting hurt. My party, this city, had never seen so much power in one strike. The guy stumbled back, and I gave him one swift kick to the face. Knocking him out cold, the arena grew quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Then the referee for the match checks the champion. The referee looked at me. "He's out, you win, sir," he said to me, and I heard the crowd burst into cheers. Then the announcer yelled, "And your winner and new champion, Jack Hunt, our first human to ever compete, is our new champion." What a fight that was, fiery and explosive. He got everyone to cheer even louder, if that was even possible. I felt the energy I lost hit me all at once. I stumbled, but was caught by Princess Mayan and Joan, who had come down from their seats. I looked at Mayan, and she looked proud that I won. Joan looked worried. "Are you okay?" Joan asked, and I nodded, letting her know that I was good. As everything began to calm down, I saw the Queen. Leah was smiling and holding a chest of gold and gems. She walked up to me and handed them to me. I took it with a smile, and I bowed. "It's an honor to compete in this year's fighting festival," I said, and Queen Leah had me stand, telling me, "Be proud of this win. Pentacross has been our only champion for 10 years. This victory wasn't an easy one. We all saw the effort you had to make to get this." I thanked her for the advice, and I looked at the crowd. Then I raised my hands and yelled, "Thank you." I walked off and lay in my waiting room for an hour, after which I went home with my party. Lucy sat on my shoulders, telling me about how much fun she had. I listened to her the whole way home. When we all got home, Mayan and her guards were waiting for us. I put Lucy behind me and I asked, "What do you want, Princess?" She looked at me and offered to help me build my training arena. "I know what you plan to do with this new addition. I want to help you because I have a proposal," she told me, and I wondered what she wanted. I crossed my arms. "Like what? Training people? Or joining your mother's army?" I watched her look over at her guards. "No to the second part, but we would love it if you helped out the younger adventurers. My mother believes that if you teach them, that they would have a better chance in the wilds," she said, and I looked at the door. "Let's go inside. You guys can come inside too," I said to Mayan and her guards. They all looked at the princess, and then I opened the door. My party went inside, and everyone else followed behind them. I closed the door, and everyone followed me into the dining room. I had everyone sit, went into the kitchen, and then made some tea. I could hear Mayan asking for me. "He might be making some of his tea. He drinks it when he gets done with missions," Joan told her as I came out with a cold vase full of it. I placed it down and asked Mayan whether I should become an adventurer or a trainer. She suggested doing both, explaining that I could bring people along and teach them survival basics. I smiled and took a glass, pouring tea for her. She took the glass and took a sip. Her eyes lit up, and she drank a bit more of the tea. "So you want me to do on-the-job training?" She nodded and told me that's what she wanted from me. I saw Lucy walk into the next room. I looked back at Mayan and agreed to help. I also accepted her help with the training hall. She stood up and poured another glass of tea. "Now with that out of the way, how's that sword you've been using since you got here?" she asked, and I told her about it getting repaired. She asked who was repairing it, and I told her that Darryl Fring was. "Isn't that the dwarf who's mean to all his customers?" she asked, and I nodded. "We've become friends, and I trust his work. He has fair prices and likes to give me extra items. But he's not all mean. It's an act. He's had a few customers flake on paying him what they owed," telling her about why he was acting mean to everyone. She understood his reason, but she didn't like his bad reputation. If I liked his work, he must be a good blacksmith. "Can I go with you when you pick up your sword?" she asked, and Mayan's guards gave her a worried look. "Sure, I'm picking it up tomorrow after my morning duties," I told her, and she finished her drink. She got up and came over to me to say good night. "I'll see you in the morning then. Have a good night, Jack." I walked with her and the guards out, but she turned to me right as she got to the road. "Jack, you're going places, and I'm having a fun time watching who you're becoming." She left, and I closed the door to Joan watching me. "She seems to enjoy being around you, sir. Do you feel the same way when you're around her?" She pondered, and I smiled, not saying anything. I went right to my room and sat at my desk. I had an office, but I had a desk in my room for writing. I took out the plans for the training hall. It wasn't going to be too big, but it was going to be good enough to handle my kids. I had Joan by my door and the chest of winnings on my bed. "Can you take these to my office and lock the door?" I asked, and she nodded, rushing to follow that order. I smiled, then went to bed after opening the window. The cool air put me to sleep. The next morning, I got up and went outside to stretch. Then I went on a small run before I went to get my sword. When I got home after an hour, Mayan was waiting for me like yesterday. She looked over, and I smiled right at her. "Give me a moment, and we can head over to the blacksmith shop," I told her, and she nodded. Coming into the house with me, she sat as I went into my room to change into my regular clothes. She sat in the other room, being asked questions by Lucy. "What are you and Daddy Jack doing today? You're on a date with him today, right?" she pestered, and Princess Mayan was shocked by her question. "Why do you think this is a date, little Lucy?" Mayan asked, and Lucy responded. "Because that's what two grown-ups do when they like each other, right?" At this point, I could tell that Lucy was teasing Princess Mayan. She liked to do that with adults. I put on my new shirt and headed out to help Mayan. She was trying to keep up with the little dog girl. I laughed. "We can head to the shop." I told Mayan, and Lucy wanted to come with, throwing a fit. "No, you can stay here and keep an eye on the house. We have people coming over to take measurements for that new training hall," I told her, and she pouted and ran into her room. I shook my head. "She's been a pain all day. I'm sorry about that," I said to Mayan. She waved her hands, telling me, "Don't worry about it, Jack. Kids can be hard to raise, but you're doing a great job with her." I blushed, looking away from her. We started our walk to the blacksmith shop. We were silent for a couple of minutes, then Mayan asked, "You healing up nice from the festival?" I nodded. "Yeah, I have a nasty bruise on my side, but it doesn't hurt much since I got up this morning." I looked over to see a couple of people, beastmen and humans. Getting into a wagon, they had dirty clothes and chains. What I just saw was slaves being brought to another village from this city. "That's sad," I said out loud, getting Mayan to look at what I was looking at. "You've not seen slaves before?" she asked, and I shook my head. "No, I've heard about the slave trade being legal in this world, but I never thought I'd see them in person." I looked depressed at Mayan, looking at them. "Well, not all of those slaves are good people. More than half of them are criminals or war prisoners." She told me that I saw a child enter the wagon last. Sometimes, though, parents sell their kids to get out of poverty. That part is sad, but it's how things are. I saw that the child was a little half-elf boy. I looked away and went to the shop. Mayan patted my back. "Not going to pretend it's not awful. I wish we could make it illegal. But this land gets 20% of its labor from the adult slaves." I nodded. I wish that the kids got a free pass. It's not fair to put them through all of that pain so early. I added as we made it to the front counter of Daryl's shop. His wife Mary came from the back to see who was here. She saw me and smiled, but then she saw my companion for today. She looked timid, not the typical Mary. "Your Highness, I didn't know you'd be visiting our little shop. What is the reason for your trip?" Mary asked. Bowing her head slowly low, she almost hit the floor. Daryl came out to see why his wife sounded weird. He saw Princess Mayan and smiled at me. He picked up his wife and bowed a bit. "Princess, I assume you're on a date with Jack, with the first stop being to get his sword," he said. Mayan looked embarrassed. "Oh, we're just on an outing to get his sword and going over to the carpenter's. Nothing too extravagant, Sir Daryl," she told him, and Mary slugged her husband in the arm. "Be nice, dear. This is the princess. Disrespect her and you'll be beheaded," she said, slapping Daryl again. I laughed. "I told you that Daryl is a good person. He's just acting mean." I whispered to Mayan. She giggled, then calmed Mary down. "Ma'am, I'm okay. I know he doesn't mean nothing by it," she said. Daryl went to the back and returned with my sword and a case. He placed the sword on the counter. Then he placed the case next to it. The sword was fixed, sharpened, and upgraded by its hilt. The hilt matched the case next to it. I opened the case to reveal a new set of armor for me. As the coloring and style of the hilt, it almost looked like a king's weapon. Bright red seams, smooth silver plates, with the rivets being black metal. It shone almost like it was coated with glass. The hilt matched it right down to the scabbard. Princess Mayan touched the sword, and I heard her dragon purr. This is a magnificent upgrade, and that armor. Do you do this type of work a lot, or do you keep this under the table for special orders? She asked Daryl, and he looked shocked. She knew blades or even armor. Yes, Jack here is my most valuable customer and friend. That work took all I had. Getting the materials wasn't easy. He told her, showing her into his blacksmith shop. He even brought me with, to see all he had. His shop had 3 huge forges, several weapon shelves, and tons of regular steel bars waiting to be made. Mayan and Daryl talked about swords and smithing for an hour. Then we headed out to see a carpenter that Daryl suggested. We made a deal with the carpenter, and I took Princess Mayan home. But then I felt the wind shift. My sword was humming from the air, hitting it. I stopped walking, and Mayan looked up at the sky. "Why is she here?" Mayan said in a terrified manner, which made me feel nervous. I looked to see a massive dragon blocking the clouds. It was dark, almost blue. The dragon looked down at the city, and I dropped my armor case and drew my sword. Mayan went to stop me, but I used my boosting magic to launch myself into the patch of the dragon. The dragon threw a fireball to the ground, trying to destroy the city. I flew into the fireball, making it dissipate from the air. I then used the sword and swung myself at the dragon. It saw me closing in and tried to stop me. I used the flat side of my huge sword to break its claw. Then I hit it hard in the face. It then fell right to the ground. I landed hard just on the outside of the city. I was right next to the dragon as it got back up. Now we stared at each other as a storm rolled in.